One of the things, though, I think that ruins business for a lot of people, especially when one of them's fully engaged, one of them's part-time, one of them's doing the business, the other one's not. They're like, well, that's your thing. And even if they're both doing it together, is the unhappy home life and the frustration that comes with building something from scratch.
Absolutely.
We had everything going against us.
Yeah, we were young. We were broke. We didn't know anything about business. We literally started from nothing.
We were never supposed to make it. So we were in that spot because I started in business. You still had a job. I was trying to do this part-time because I had a job still. Ended up leaving that job, went full-time, had to figure out how to make money, kind of swim and stay alive. But if we were to remind ourselves and kind of remember the frustration and tension and panic that comes when you're building something from scratch, that I think that this topic is probably responsible for why so many people don't make it, or it takes them so long to make it, or they end up quitting.
And you never forget it, by the way. It feels like yesterday that we were going through those things, but if you know how to work together to handle the stress of starting a new business, like he was saying, and making your home a safe haven where, it's not as stressful, because you can't have stress just all day, every day. You're going to eventually crack. And so I feel like this topic will help a lot of people because of that.
Yeah, and it's not just the stress. Maybe it is for some people, the stress of money. But also just the entrepreneur paranoia and the panic of you wanting to get there so badly. And the image in your head of how fast it should be and what that journey looks like, it doesn't almost ever add up to the actual reality. And then sometimes you have a spouse that's really supportive. Sometimes you have a spouse that's not. Sometimes you have a spouse that doesn't really care. But the frustration and stress and panic that comes with building something a lot of times spills over into things that aren't associated with that. Like, hey, where do you want to go to dinner? I don't have to know. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's because presently you're somewhere else, and you're agitated. So let's talk about having a happy home life when things suck in business.
Yep.
Because I think it's easy to have a happy home life when things are good.
Exactly. Yeah, everything's good. Everything's chill.
Just like in a relationship, they're like, oh my God, they're so happy. Oh, we're so happy. And people go jokingly, well, have you had your first fight yet? Because then it's like, now what?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So when things are bad in business, I think that's when this is the most pivotal. So for the entrepreneur, let's go through a couple tips and a couple things that maybe can help in managing that arena of entrepreneurship, especially early on in the beginning.
Well, let's talk about bad first off, because we say, business is going bad, or business is stressful, or, you're having a bad day, but which is normal. It's normal for things like he said, you have a picture in your head of what you want it to look like right now, the ideal. And the problem is when your ideal doesn't match up with your reality.
Right.
So when we have, a lot of times what ends up happening as humans is one thing goes wrong in the day, you have 2 appointments that reschedule, and you throw out the whole day. You label the whole day as this is a bad day. And so you go home, you're upset because it was a bad day. But what ends up happening is then the next day, since you already had a bad day, you're kind of going into the next day with a bad attitude. You end up having a bad week, and a bad week ends up turning into a bad month. And before you know it, it's a bad year and a bad couple of years.
Right.
And it just completely is blown out of proportion.
And that's the key, is that it's blown out of proportion. Even a bad day is very difficult to have once you could get a grasp on what that means, and even on just a little bit of emotional maturity, right? That I think is required as you go through business. You get better at this. Financially, when you're relying on everything to go right, that's when business is the hardest. Is when every client's got to say yes for you to pay your bills. Every client's got to say yes. Otherwise, your wife's going to be like, what the hell, dude? Like, what are you doing there all day? You're not making any money. Every teammate has to stay. Otherwise, your spouse is going to get, jump down your throat because you're not bringing home any checks, right? And then your rents, you're going to fall behind. And it's just this constant pressure. So what ends up happening is in that moment, then we're putting so much expectation on something to go good and we're relying on it. And then it doesn't. And then it throws us off the entire day, like you said. In order to have a bad day, you have to basically, as you said, toss the day, right? You got to kind of quit on
Every
the day.
hour of the whole entire day was just trash.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't happen.
Like you didn't learn anything. Nothing positive happened. You just made zero progress the whole entire day.
And then to let that become a bad week when people go, I had a bad, man, this week sucked. Like, did it really though? Like, maybe you only had 2 things on the calendar. Mm-hmm. And that's why you're saying this week sucked. And when someone says, dude, I had a conversation with someone earlier that said, I had just a terrible month. This month has been horrible. I'm like, the whole month? First of all, we're only 2/3 of the way through. We still got another 10, 11 days where it could become amazing. Mm-hmm. And secondly, like, how do you have a bad month? How do you have a bad month? You may have a bad appointment, but a bad month?
Right.
Where the whole month happened and you didn't get shit done?
All 30 days.
There's no way. There's no way unless you're only focused sporadically, right? And so to have a happy home life, one of the things is keeping perspective, which is the fact that, hey, well, that appointment didn't work out. Man, today had its challenges. Oh, things were tough today. Oh, not everything went as planned today. But there's always a glimmer of hope and something good, right? Whether it's learning, whether it's, I thought I was going to pick up $6 commitments with clients today and I ended up only getting 5 appointments canceled. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't equal a bad day. And then it should never equal you communicating to the family about how you had a shitty month. That's when the home life goes to crap.
Right.
Is when you as the pilot of the ship start telling everyone, oh, this week sucked. Oh, today was garbage. Oh, this month was horrible. And then that becomes the aura in the room at the house.
That's the energy. If you, like he said, like what are your perspective, what are you focusing on? So you could go home one of 2 ways. You can go home and say, I was supposed to have 6, what were you saying?
Dollar
commitments. I was supposed to have $6 commitments and 5 of them canceled. I didn't get anything from 5 people. Like
but
I
did get to eat lunch and I did get to watch, a TV show.
Or you can go home and say, I had a great day. I got a $1 commitment. I was able to eat lunch today because some appointments that weren't going to end up being clients anyways, didn't pan out.
Right.
I saved myself some time. I was able to do some prospecting. I was able to get some policies pushed through. Versus, saying like all the good things that happened versus focusing on the things that maybe were out of your control and they fell through.
Yep. It's back in the very, 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 very beginning. You'll remember this. The very beginning of my career. Someone told me. I heard this twice actually. He said, "Hey, if you ever get chargebacks, or if people ever quit, or things ever go bad, don't tell your wife. Because you don't want her to look at the business in a negative way. You don't want her thinking about the negative stuff." And although
I understand the thought behind it.
The lesson behind it was really good, right? Which is exactly what we're talking about. When you have a bad day, you have a bad week, you have a bad month, just be conscious of the way you're communicating.
Yes.
Especially in your house, to your kids, to your spouse. Nothing in any business is ever always perfect. Mm-hmm. That's part of business. That's part of the roller coaster of building something. And so there's no such thing as bad days. There's no such thing as bad weeks. Maybe let me backtrack. Maybe you will have a day that's just straight out of hell and you're like, what the heck?
It can happen.
But it shouldn't spill into your entire week and then into your entire month. There should always be an ability to still win, regardless of the trials at that time.
Yeah, and I will say something about the story that you just said is that you knew how to communicate when you came home. So I knew he was frustrated. I knew things didn't always go his way. I'm not, I've known him for a really long time. I had known him for a while back then as well. So if you love somebody, when they're having a bad day. They can say, oh no, like everything is great, but you can tell, like in their energy, no matter what kind of a smile they put on, But he would always communicate to me that he was learning, right? He was just going to try everything and see what stuck. And that we knew that building a business is a long-term commitment. It wasn't just going to happen overnight. And so there were going to be some ups and downs, but as long as he learned and grew every single day, it was a win.
Yep. Let's talk about another one. Magnifying the right things, and not magnifying the wrong things, right? Which, in having a happy home life, this is very similar to what we just talked about.
Yeah.
It's what do I put the spotlight on? What do we choose to focus on? Oh, got it. Someone charged back today. Oh my God, just everything is going wrong. Like I'm in chargeback city, right? Or, whatever these things that people start to talk about. Or God, everyone quits. Everyone I talk to says no. Everyone reschedules. And we start dramatizing like this entire event and taking this little tiny thing and blowing it under a magnifying glass and making it this huge deal when it's really not. At the same time, we oftentimes will magnify the bad things and we ignore the good things, and all our focus goes on the bad things.
Yeah, it's the equivalent to, there's a lot of TikToks about this, but it's equivalent of someone sending you a message saying, hey, I know we had plans today, but I have to cancel. Something came up. So you could either read it and go, oh, something came up, they can't make it, we'll hang out some other time. Or you could read the message 20 times and look for subtext and decide that person hates you. It's all in what you decide to magnify,
right?
And what to focus on.
And it's the death of a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in when they're trying to build something from scratch, because they get caught up in their head. And then you start to doubt yourself. And it only takes a second to doubt yourself. And once an ounce of doubt creeps in, now you start to lose confidence. You don't feel good about yourself. You're not sure. You have all this uncertainty. You start thinking about, should I go back and get a job? And then it's like this spiral of nonsense versus, this is what I always tell myself. Hey, I've been here before. Probably won't be the last time. And every time we've been here before, we've made it out alive and we made it out good. And so let me just get to work. Let me make an action plan. Let me tie down some appointments, and action cures fear.
Every time.
Action always cures fear. Yep. Another thing, don't kick the dog. Hopefully you don't kick your dog.
It's a saying, but I know some people do it, so don't. Don't kick your dog. Don't take out all the bad things or your perceived bad things that happen throughout the day on your family.
Yeah.
On your animals, your pets, your friends. They're not your doormats. It's okay there's a difference between venting and abusing. And one's healthy and one is not. And of course, if you treat your loved ones badly because you're frustrated because of your business, they're not going to like the business. They're going to hate the business. They're going to start looking at it as the thing that hurts them and the thing that hurts you, somebody who they love.
Yeah, and then you're not going to like them, and you're going to start looking at them that way, and it's going to create trouble.
Because you're going to get over it.
Right.
You're going to stop being frustrated. You're going to stop being mad, but they're going to remember that. And you're going to, fall back in love with being an entrepreneur, and they're going to be like, why are you doing this? This thing is terrible.
Right. The family and friends and everyone around you, they only know whatever you tell them. Mm-hmm. And so when someone has this really negative outlook on what you're doing, it had to have come from you. It had to have come from something you said. When someone says, I'll join you once you're making money. It's like, how the hell do they know you're not making money? Mm-hmm. Unless you told them. When someone goes, if this is so great, then why do you still have a part-time job? How the hell do they know you have a job? unless you've told them, And so everything comes back to the message you communicate as the communicator. And when you're frustrated, and then you got to get good at leaving the frustration, like compartmentalizing, where you take it and you leave it over here, and you don't allow the frustration of the fact that everything didn't go great at the business today to spill into everything else, where now you're just irritated. It's not even necessarily that you treat everyone poorly. It's that you're irritated and you're easily agitated because you're frustrated, and so you're always on edge. And that's part of being an entrepreneur. It really is, but it doesn't give you permission though to be a freaking dickhead to everybody, just because your appointment didn't go well,
Yeah. And a big part of compartmentalizing is being present. When you're home, you're home. You're at dinner, You're not still at work, trying to figure out this issue. It's being present and giving, your full self to people who you're with.
And keeping the big picture big,
Yeah.
right? And so, like for me, when I'm at home, I'm at home, but I'm still working.
Yeah.
And when I'm at dinner, but I'm still thinking about business.
Right.
But it's keeping the big picture big, right? It doesn't matter if someone says no today, because I'm not done today anyways. Today's not my retirement day, so it's all good. I'm going to keep on building. Reminding yourself that you're working towards building something that's too big to build overnight. So it's going to take a lot of days. It's going to take a lot of nights. It's going to take a lot of cancellations and rejection, and all of those things are required in order to finish, to get the finished product.
I think it's good to remind your family too. Remind them of the big picture.
Yeah, the conversation should be like, man, can you imagine what life's going to be like in 5 years? Not, God, everything sucked today. But it sounds like common sense.
But it's not.
But the majority of times, I think the negative conversation is the default. Especially when things aren't going well. So it's, even if you got your face kicked in, man, can you imagine though, in 5-10 years, we're going to get there. We get this zoomed in image of success, which is where we go back and we review all of our failures constantly. An example, I'm prospecting, I'm sending out, contact messages with people on whatever platform. And then I choose to go back every day to see how many people opened it and didn't reply to me. Like, that's this zoomed in version of success where you're highlighting everything that doesn't work. Where today it looks like I just had all these emotional up and down. But if I do this for 10 years and I zoom out, it's like reading a history of a stock on the internet. You can see all the ups and downs, but when you go to a 10-year span, it's just a straight line up. And so we get this zoomed in microscopic version of our progress, and that's the problem. And then we communicate that shit to everybody versus the big picture of where we're going,
That's so true.
Getting canceled on for a year straight is going to make you a lot of money, because in between all those cancellations are going to be a lot of appointments that didn't cancel.
Amen.
And celebrating the wins is, I think, how we'll finish off.
Yes, my favorite part.
Yeah, celebrating the wins. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, celebrating the wins. And now by celebration, we don't mean like, take a week vacation for every, for every small win that you have, but really taking the time and going, hey, like today I had a goal of doing XYZ and I hit it. So, ice cream for me and the family. Like just taking a moment to really say like, that was good. And get used to winning. Get used to that feeling, that happy feeling. You need to have a good association with winning. That way your brain will want to do it more.
Yeah. We have a couple on the team, a family on the team, Venti and Kaylee.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I was just talking to him, and he's a perfect example of this because they do such a good job. All their kids are involved in the business. They got kids in high school, kids that are adult, barely adults, kids that just graduated, And I think they got like 22 kids or something like that. And they and they do such a good job about this. Because I remember when they started in business, they were not making money. And they were struggling. They had debt. They were trying to figure it out. And COVID really messed up their business that they already had. And so one thing he was telling me is he's like, we had a family meeting. And we sat down, and Kaylee and I, we sat down with the kids, and we were like, all right, everyone, tell us your frustrations.
Really?
And I was like, oh.
That's
and
cool.
then he's like, be honest. And he's like, the kids are like, well, Dad, it's taking longer than you said it was. I thought you said we were going to already have moved out and we were going to have our own room by now, and all this kind of stuff. And so it's like a family business meeting, right? And then he's like, okay, that's fair. Well, we're working on it. We're making progress. You see how we got to do this now? We got to do this now. You see how we have this now and we didn't before. And so that's what it looks like when you do a good job of celebrating your wins and also communicating the big picture, with your household, right? Where everyone's on the same page. He's like, yeah, today I had to miss, one of the football games and, for the kids, but they know it's because I had an appointment. And they're like, it's because Dad's freaking winning, so that we could get our own room. It's like, it's so much healthier than the alternative, which is just everyone's pissed off. And he's like, we live in this small house, so everyone could hear when I'm on an appointment. But then when I close, everyone celebrates together. Everyone's like, yeah, Dad closed, Like, I just think it's so cool to celebrate the wins like that. And little tiny wins added up for a long time could change your whole life.
Yep. And it's important to celebrate them.
Yep. So anyways, we appreciate you guys, all your support, sharing all the teaser clips and all that good stuff. And
yeah, it's really cool. I got a really sweet message this week. Just someone saying that they thought that the podcast was really valuable. And I don't know, it's just really good to hear those things and to know that, we're helping some people. So thank you guys so much. And, like, subscribe and all that stuff.
all right, we're out.
Bye, guys.